I am seeking my return to Nigeria. I am seeking it through a constitution established by the military regime. I am seeking it through a national party in Nigeria, a party that transcends ethnic considerations. I am in fact a partner of other parts of Nigeria. The leader of the party for which I am standing is a northerner. There are many Westerners, there are Easterners in that party. I am in fact seeking a return legally and constitutionally into Nigeria, into a new Nigeria that I think I can serve.
But nonetheless, the very fact that Ojukwu comes back must mean a reopening of the old wounds. It must be a symbol of the war that took place.
No, actually, I don't think it is. I don't think in any way it is. First, the war. The war was not Ojukwu's war. I happened on the Igbo situation at the time of the conflict. I did my duty to the best of my ability, and I am glad that Nigerians generally recognize this fact. One man could not have held the entire Nigeria and her allies for 3 years. The Igbo people felt threatened.
Why don't you go back to Nigeria now and fight the election in person?
I would very much like to. I would very much like to. But I have already mentioned the obstacles that are being put in the way of a candidate to be a member of parliament. I'm not seeking political office. I'm not seeking government office. Just to represent my people 10 years after the end of the war. Obstacles are being put. Even people who just signed my papers are being imprisoned. It would be foolhardy for me at this stage to step into Nigeria. But I will go back. Once I become a member of parliament, once I can take my seat in parliament, I will go back, and I'll take my chance with my parliamentary immunity.
Are you seriously saying that all you want to be is an MP? Don't you want to be president?
Once I have decided to go into politics, then I want to serve the nation in the highest capacity and within my ability. If, as a politician, it comes my way that the party of which I am a member designates me as a presidential candidate, I would be extremely proud, and I would certainly contest.
Well, I think that is the interpretation. I do not know whether that accord was the actual final result, which was not to be done until after we got home.
But you agreed to the accord when you were in Ghana.
No, this is the accord. It is not a question of agreement in accord. This it is when we come back home, and I made this. I made a statement. When you come back home, and I make a statement that you about Aburi.
Right. No, that's why it was called an accord. An accord means that you had agreed.
No, accord. But then it has to be done in Nigeria before Friday.
So you needed to come home and discuss it.
Unfortunately, when the first people didn't want to believe it, I was having a serious attack of kind of fever or whatever it is, and I could not make any decision. At home. Right. When we arrived in home, and Ojukwu was one who then, when he came, he went and made made a statement. He made a statement. About Aburi Accord, and the governor of the Midwest did edge. Then rang me at that very early hours of the game.
Aburi Accord. Let's talk about it. Do you know that Ojukwu was the one that strongly pushed for Aburi Peace talk to be held in Ghana? He was insisting on a neutral ground because tension in Nigeria was already dangerously high. The Aburi Peace Accord meeting was eventually held in Ghana under the invitation of Ghana Head of State, General Joseph Arthur Ankrah. The aim of this Aburi Peace Accord meeting was to create a regional system of government and also to reduce the crisis and the killings of Igbo people that was happening in the northern Nigeria as of that time. After the meeting, the both sides reportedly agreed on the terms. But when they came back to Nigeria, Gowon and his government backed away. they backed away from the initial agreement. Do you know that Gowon called for another meeting in Benin City, Nigeria, but not under the Aburi Accord framework? Ojukwu and many Eastern leaders refused to attend because there were tensions in Nigeria already. That was the main reason why the first meeting was held in Ghana, Aburi, Ghana, for everybody's safety. If Gowon wanted peace, why didn't he hold another meeting in Ghana? Yes, if Gowon wanted peace, why didn't he host another meeting in Ghana, knowing fully well that there was tension in Nigeria? Easterners were being massacred in the north, and Gowon as head of state failed to protect them. But the moment they wanted to leave Nigeria, the Nigerian government suddenly became concerned about unity and one Nigeria. Many historians believe that it is because the oil well was in the eastern part of the country. If the oil was not in the eastern part of the country, they wouldn't have cared less. The life of Easterners that were being massacred was not even their priority. It is the oil. This country was built on selfish interests and greed. Yes, let's not forget that millions of Igbo children starved to death from the war that Gowon started. I am so grateful to God that Gowon is alive to see the mess this country is today. Does Gowon know that according to Global Terrorism Index, as you can see here, Nigeria ranks as the 4th most terrorism impacted country globally. The biggest dream of the average Nigeria is to escape the country. But Gowon think he won the war because UK and Soviet nation helped him starve millions of Biafran children to death. You did not win any war. Because Nigeria, instead of progressing, is retrogressing after 60-something years. How can you write a book to tell your own side of the story when almost all the people involved are already gone? The dead cannot speak. So who is going to speak for the dead? Me, Ifeoma Ojukwu, I am going to speak for my uncle. I will not let anyone lie on the dead. Mba.
From the information at my disposal, the cabinet decided to transfer power to him as the general officer commanding the armed forces. It means an abdication of power. And it means then the suspension of the president, the prime minister, the 4 regional governors, and the 4 regional premiers. In other words, the civilian authorities have found it impossible to maintain law and order and have transferred same to the military authorities until law and order can be maintained.
Are you or your cabinet setting a time limit on this assumption of power?
I'm not in position to say because I wasn't there. But the acting president, in a telephone conversation to me, merely mentioned that cabinet met and unanimously and voluntarily agreed to abdicate power. I'm assuming in the light of previous practice elsewhere in the world that it will be temporary.
But this military government could last 6 months or a year or even 2 years.
That's been the case in other parts of the world, and I won't rule that out.
Mr. President, do you think it was a coup or a mutiny?
From what we have read from what I have read in the papers or seen in the televisions, some say it's a coup, some say it's a mutiny. But I doubt if it's a coup on the evidence available, because a coup would imply an attempt to overthrow the legally constituted government. That evidence is yet to be forthcoming. But what we know is that some soldiers in some parts of the country are in control, and others are in control. Well, some people call one group rebels, they call others loyalists. Well, you can take your pick there. But so it might appear to be mutiny, but I wouldn't say that it's either a coup or a mutiny. What I would say is that there is a sort of insurrection, or there is disorder in Nigeria, which the civilian authorities find impossible to contain.
When the Nigerian cabinet met, the British High Commissioner was present. Is it likely that the Nigerians there asked for help, which hasn't yet been transmitted to this country and to yourself?
In the first place, the principle of inviting the head of a diplomatic mission to attend a cabinet meeting of a friendly nation can be criticized. But in view of the nature of emergency prevailing, maybe it can be excused in the circumstance. But Sir Francis Cumming Bruce himself was reported to have said that the cabinet did not ask for military assistance. That may be so, it may not be so. If it is so, I'm afraid it will be a bit awkward to Britain in view of the fact that the present government has refused to use force in Rhodesia.
But at the end of it, I don't want to go because these things are all, the tapes are available, the records are there. In fact, only about 2 weeks ago, I saw a set of the records again. The transcripts are available. But we talked about the Nigerian situation. And certainly, at the end, everybody says, oh, you told them this, you did that. The fact was that our case was so clear that I actually believe at the end of Aburi that the problem was not Gowon, but probably some ambassadors in Lagos who were pressing for something else. Because we understood each other. We agreed on every single point. The drafting was, in fact, my chief secretary with 2 other chief secretaries from the other side. They said, no, no, no. And drafted and agreed. We looked at it, we agreed. General Ankrah read over the whole report again to us at the end. Asked us if we wanted to amend anything. No. At the end of all that, the position was so good that actually Ankrah drove Jack, Gowon, and myself to the airport. Jack was sitting on his left, I was sitting on his right. He was in the middle. And in the course of that journey, at a point, General Ankrah shook his head and said, oh, thank you. Thank you. If only we can go on like this, everything would be all right. I believe I was the one. As I do now from time to time, I go for the dramatic. Suddenly I picked up Gowon's hand, put it on Ankrah's lap, brought my other hand, placed it on it, and I said, General, sir, hold us together, I want to say something. So General Ankrah put his hand on top of the 2 hands, and I said, General, I want to assure you that I am totally satisfied with everything we said. I will even go further and say to you something I did not say at the conference, and that is that once we have implemented everything we have said, I would ask you for one favor and one favor only, and that would be to be the one to propose Jack Gowon as a head of state of Nigeria.
It was a 2-day conference of peers and old mates, but its aftermath produced even further controversy.
When we came back, and Ojukwu did not go to make the statement he made first, virtually giving the impression that we've agreed for a confederation to move apart, etc., which was really not in exactly that. If I had had the opportunity to make my broadcast first, because that was the agreement, not for him to make the broadcast first. Then if I had committed myself to what he said, then there wouldn't have been any problem. But he went and said certain things that certainly looked wrong, and therefore we saw in practically everything he did, I think it was for to play up to the gallery, not being sincere.
At Aburi, yes, we agreed on area commands for the armed forces. At Aburi, we agreed that the police force would be decentralized. We agreed on those. Yes. We agreed even to show that we didn't separate, at Aburi we also agreed on certain revenue formula. That's what happened at Aburi. Aburi again, because I always end up, this sounds odd today, but I always end up by saying I must have been naive, because I believed actually that would be the end. I'll confess to you, when I got back to Enugu, oh yes, I had a party, believing that probably the danger was over. That's what we thought. Until they then began to deny everything. It was the denial of Nigeria that made me publish the tapes of Aburi, because we had insisted that each one should have a set of tapes. Everybody talks about confederation. Go and look at the transcript. There is no time that the word confederation came from my lips.
In broad terms, Aburi changed the title of head of state from Supreme Military Commander to Commander-in-Chief. It gave the regions control over internal affairs, and concurrence of each region was now required for any decision affecting the whole country.
Etc. That, of course, the other side, Ojukwu, you say no, because of other work, Nigeria is going to poison the food. Whether we are afraid of weapons being in there, but of Nigeria will be poisoning the food, and so they will say no to but and in the end, really a lot of people, it is not from people killed by gunshots, right? But all the palm trees that I saw when I went to that part of the country, and I saw all those black spots on trees, palm trees, etc. And I was wondering what sort of disease is this on those trees? And someone said, no, those are bullets, bullet marks. So most of the bullets were more on on those trees.
Not on people.
Not on people.
To what extent, sir, do you think your presence in Niamey means that Africa has recognized Biafra as independent?
My presence in Niamey established one fact. It established that the OAU as a body has at least recognized that there are two sides to the problem, a thing they didn't appear to do earlier on when they went to Lagos, took decisions. This meeting in Niamey is rather significant because it showed how close we were still to getting the OAU taking a one-sided view. The communique on the day before was quite clearly a Lagos communique, and they had accepted the fact that Ojukwu was a very difficult man. He would not attend, he would not make proposals, and on my arrival there, I think they changed some of their basic attitudes. And if you look at the second communique, it left the whole matter rather open. They felt that with this approach that one could in fact achieve something. And in fact, I think Lagos must have been a trifle disappointed that I did attend.
How much closer, or rather, how has the meeting in Niamey changed the situation? How much more likely has it made a ceasefire and an ultimate settlement?
I think one thing was very clear right from the start. The African heads of states in the consultative committee felt that the ceasefire was of the utmost importance. And it was now a question of trying to show them that the obstacles to the ceasefire could indeed be overcome, and that there are ways of overcoming it, not just the 12-point Lagos proposals for surrender.
Do you think you succeeded in persuading them?
I persuaded them, I'm sure of this, that there are other ways rather than the 12 points. Oh yes.
Is it going to happen?
I have every hope. I would be able to tell by the end of this week watching and judging the way the preliminary talks are going, I think I should be able to tell definitely whether we are on the way to peace.
Thank you.